Well, guys, it's 5:05 in the morning. Getting ready to take off and go do some testing. So, got a big day of suspension testing and stuff like that. We're gonna go head east, about 3-4 hour drive or so. That way we can see if all the stuff we did at the Can-Am is gonna pay off. So, here we go.
This is going to sound incredibly bizarre, but with stiffening up the chassis, I actually think it helped the suspension. The reason why is because going over all this small chop, it felt way smoother than it used to, and I think that's because with the chassis being stiffer, it doesn't flex as much, which means the suspension has to absorb the shock and everything else and all the bumps. And when the suspension moves, right, it has a spring and it has a damper, so it is a properly dampened system. Whereas whenever the chassis would flex, it would flex like a spring but without a damper, so it would kind of be a little bit springy. It sounds so weird, but like it's one of the first things that I noticed right away is I felt like this is smoother. I mean, we've driven this road umpteen times. I know how it feels, and it definitely felt better. It's super bizarre, but that was the first thing that I noticed right away. Man, this was such a nice day to get out here in the hills and stuff. It was beautiful 50-60 degree day and stuff. Super sunny. Was awesome. Nice refresher after the stressful work week and stuff. One thing that we did notice, luckily this was only a few times when we were kind of headed into the sun a little bit, is holy cow, does that new dash reflect the sun off of, like, into the windshield and blind you. Oh my gosh, was it super bright. That part was awful. So that is one downside to the dash. Luckily, it was easy to fix. Basically, I just threw my sweatshirt up on top of the dash, and that totally blocked the issue and fixed it. So the other good thing is normally when you're in a race, you don't have a windshield, so that won't be an issue in the race. It's only when the sun can reflect off of the dash onto the glass, and that's what you see. That's when it's a pain in the butt. Otherwise, it worked out really, really well. So that's the one downside we found, but other than that, not a big deal. One thing that I think really helps us when we're out racing is how much seat time we have in the Can-Am. Right? Most people, whenever they race these, or any off-road vehicle for that matter, the only seat time they have is usually gathered at the race. They don't go out in it that often. So, I mean, yeah, every now and again they'll go do some testing, but we are out in this thing almost every single weekend. Most people on a race car, they'll put, 1,000, maybe 2,000 miles on it in a year. We'll put double that on this easily, and that's only in about 9 months worth of riding. Mainly because the other 3 months of the year, it's way too cold or it is way too stinking hot. So I think that is one area that really kind of separates us and helps us do well. It's because we know this thing inside and out. One thing to kind of beware of and stuff when you're ever out running on greened out roads is remember, it is not your road. You don't own it. So be respectful and remember there could very well be somebody coming the other way. And my biggest fear is like a father and son or father and daughter, mother and daughter, whatever. Basically some little kid being trailed behind with their parent, some little kid on a little motorcycle, and you come over a blind crest and just take this poor kid out. that would be the worst feeling in the world. So always remember, you don't know what's over a blind corner, or you don't know what's over a blind crest or around a blind corner. So always try to remember, drive cautiously and stuff. We all want to get out there and have fun and stuff and start ripping, but just try to keep that in the back of your mind that very well could be a little kid coming the other way or something like that, and that would definitely be a pretty bad ending to a day. So the other thing that I noticed once we got this thing out here is that the steering alignment seemed to be a little bit off. The alignment seemed to be a little off, but more so the bump steers seemed to be way worse. And I think that's because we disconnected I pulled off all the control arms, right? And bolted them all back on. Well, Can-Am, they basically have so much slop in the alignment of their control arms and those holes that you can basically change how it behaves based on just, the slop buildup in each control arm. So that's one thing that definitely I'm going to have to fix when I get back is, make sure that that's all aligned. I'm honking here because you can barely see down there in the lower area in that, dirt field. There's actually a guy that was getting ready to start shooting and stuff, and just in case he was wearing his ear pro, I figured I'd hit the siren and stuff and just kind of let him know, hey, we're here, don't shoot. So I didn't hear any shots being fired or anything like that and stuff, but I didn't want to ruin our day, I didn't want to ruin their day and stuff, so figured couldn't hurt. And it actually turns out that it almost looked like they were just getting there, and they hadn't even gotten stuff set up yet. They were just getting out of the rig, so worked out well. All right, up here on the right, you're going to kind of see a couple fairly good-sized mud holes. So unfortunately, I have zero video footage of this. But one of the last times we were out, a buddy and I basically bet me $1 I couldn't make it through. I knew no way in heck I was going to make it through, but I figured I may as well give it a good try. So I must have made it into that mud hole. Basically, I think the back tires just got into the mud hole. It sunk straight down to the frame, and I literally moved not even an inch. I could not believe I went from 0 to stuck almost instantly. It was bottomless mud hole. Luckily, there was some guy that was nearby and stuff with a Jeep, and he just pulled me out really easily, so didn't even have to winch or anything, but I could not believe how stuck I got, how fast. So during the winter months, right, there's always a lot of snow on the ground up here in the hills. So I actually changed the suspension setup for the winter months. Basically, normally I run it around 16 to 17 inches of ground clearance. But during the winter months, I'll crank it up to 19 inches of ground clearance just to kind of keep that belly pan up a little bit higher. Also because in the winter months, we end up taking a little bit more stuff with us, take extra change of clothes and stuff like that. Just in case you get stranded out there, you got to make sure that, you have plenty of clothing and stuff to keep warm. But anyway, now that it's nicer out and stuff, it's probably about time that we get this thing lowered back down again and get it set up for going fast. So that's going to be on my plan for this coming week is we'll get it lowered and get it nice and wide, get it set up, because the race in June is going to be a really fast flowing course. Doesn't seem like it's very rough at all and stuff, no big chop, no big rocks, no big bumps or anything like that, just a really fast flowing smooth track. So I want to make sure that this thing is set up as good as it can be to essentially hoon it and drift it around corners and stuff. So getting it as low as possible is always the best for that. Alright, so I don't know if you noticed, but in the previous clip, on the left-hand side, there's a Chevy Silverado kind of parked off a little ways, and I noticed a guy getting into his truck. So before I started this, I kind of had a feeling that I would see him, And sure enough, I did. So remember, always listen to your gut. Just as I was saying earlier, always be aware that there could be someone coming the other way. So I slammed on the brakes super hard because I wasn't nervous about hitting him. It was just mainly the massive plume of dust that was behind me. I wanted that to stop as soon as possible so I didn't dust him out and make him any more upset than he already was. So as you can see, I had a ton of room to run wide and stuff like that, and realistically, I could have kept the hammer down and missed him and wouldn't have been an issue at all, other than I would have been that guy that would have just dusted him out super bad, which would have been really disrespectful.